Well-known forensic consultant Paul O'Sullivan and Forensics for Justice are mulling over plans to open a criminal case against the food company Tiger Brands over the listeriosis outbreak, which we covered widely on this channel. But how massive could this be? Paul O'Sullivan now joins me live to discuss these plans. Just bearing it down to its bare bones, Paul, what we've got here is that criminal dockets against Tiger Brands over 180 listeriosis deaths and 479 instances of sickness. When we covered that on this channel widely, what exactly are you hoping to achieve with this?
Well, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. Forensics for Justice was set up 3 years ago with the intention to provide a justice where there were gaps in the justice system. And we've spent the last 3 years, we focused a lot on, I suppose you would call them fairly high-profile cases like commissioners of police that have had their finger in the till, and ministers, and the so-called Gupta leaks, Dudu Mayeni, who's now running with her tail between her legs, and others who have involved themselves in, for want of a better expression, bringing the country to its knees. Now, and I suppose about a year ago, we started taking on cases which were not high profile, but they were public interest cases. For example, we did a murder where a husband decided to murder his wife to collect the premiums on the insurance policy. We had another case where a husband set light to the house and burned it down and killed his wife and 4 children. The listeriosis case came under our attention about 2 weeks ago, and we came to the conclusion jointly, Forensics for Justice, that this case required more than just a civil claim against the company. It required a thorough investigation over and above the investigation, and we've been in communication with the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, and we think they've done a very good job.
What's going to be the basis of your case?
Okay, our case is going to be quite simple. We're going to open a case for 180 charges of murder in the alternative culpable homicide. The second leg of it is going to be 479 cases of attempted murder in the alternative assault causing actual bodily harm. Now, when we look at the South African legal system, our criminal justice system is slightly different, for example, than America or the UK. Every country has its own system. We are looking here at the offences that are committed by negligence. So it's what we call dolus eventualis. Now, if a person doesn't do or does a certain thing and hasn't foreseen the outcome of his conduct, we call that dolus eventualis. If a person does things with an intended outcome, we call that dolus directus. So, for example, if a person goes into a bank and pulls a gun out and shoots somebody and steals their money, he had a direct intention to kill that person. We are not saying at this stage that there's any dolus directus as far as Tiger Brands are concerned, but we are certain with the evidence that we've seen already, that there is indeed a case of dolus eventualis. In other words, they failed to carry out their mandate. Now, if you look at the Companies Act and the King Report on Corporate Governance, the directors of a company are jointly and severally liable if that company does things which are not in the public interest. And I can't think of anything more compelling than killing 180 of your customers that you are supplying food to.
How much of a fight think you're in for? I mean, Tiger Brands, they've got a massive legal department, they've got deep pockets. How hard do you think they're going to fight you?
Well, we won't be suing Tiger Brands. We'll be opening a criminal docket. And like all the other criminal dockets that we open, we don't just open the docket and then leave it to the authorities to get on with it. We start a process to apply pressure to make sure the investigations, over and above the investigations we carry out, because before we present our docket to the state, we will have carried out our own investigations, we'd have laid out a platform, and then we would have also indicated where we think evidence will exist that we already don't have access to, and we do have access to quite a bit of evidence already. So what we will be doing through a process of, I suppose, partnership with the police, we've started talking to possible funders overseas with the purpose of supplying specialist forensic skills over and above the skills we already have to assist the state in adducing the necessary evidence for a criminal prosecution.
How likely is it that through this case, obviously it's going to be high profile, that you might get some sort of change in the law to protect people, the very people who died in this?
Well, I was thinking about that. You know, if you look at the Consumer Protection Act, for example, that already lays out a fairly broad spectrum. Somebody said, oh, we should be going after them in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. I'm saying no. What we have here are criminal offences. We don't have one person who passed away. We have 180, and that figure might even be higher. So you cannot have a situation where you get systemic failures of quality control procedures. We're starting to get information now, which is very interesting, that some of the products that go into the Tiger Brands products are imported. They're coming from other countries, and in particular from South America. We're now picking up cases in South America where on the export line of food products in South America, I'm not going to name the countries at this stage because we're still investigating, but people have been arrested and charged for signing off on health certificates for food that's being exported from South America, which is then finding its way into South Africa. So corruption may well turn out to be at the root of all this.
And how long do you think before you can name these companies? And you've got investigators working on it now. How long before you can say name names and we can bring it out in the open?
Well, what we intend to do, we have a website called forensicsforjustice.org, and what we intend to do, as we do with all our other cases, we sanitize the cases to make sure we're not giving away any information that could be defamatory or harmful. If it's in the public interest, we don't mind defaming people. But if it's not in the public interest, we will be sanitizing the documents and putting them up on our website. So we'll let the people of the country decide whether or not there's a prima facie case. At this stage, we are certain there is a prima facie case.
What do you think is going to be likely to be the biggest difficulty you're going to face in this docket that you're going to open?
Well, you have to remember that the criminal justice system in South Africa has for a number of years been captured by political forces, if you want, or corrupt forces. In fact, we're saying that the criminal justice system is still being controlled by the mafia. Now, that has to be cleared first. We have been writing to the President. We've written several times to Cyril Ramaphosa, and we've asked him to take steps, and we've identified the areas where the cleaning up needs to take place in the criminal justice system. And we've said the starting point has to be at the National Prosecuting Authority, because it doesn't matter how good the police are. The final decision as to whether or not a prosecution will take place rests with the National Prosecuting Authority, and the National Prosecuting Authority is currently impotent, deliberately impotent. So they are very, very picky on the cases that they will in fact prosecute on.
And lastly, very briefly, the next step. Which police station are you going to go into?
We're going to open the docket at Sandton Police Station because the head office of Tiger Brands.
On what day?
Well, we don't like to give away that sort of thing. One thing I don't like to do is lay a docket which is not properly formed. So when the docket is ready, which we expect within the next week or so, the docket will be ready. I've seen it, it's taking shape on a daily basis. When the docket is ready, it will be filed at the police station, and it will in fact be posted on our website.